Hello, podcast world. Welcome to Balance Life Mastery, the show where we talk about all things high performance and life balance without the burnout. Stories, insights, and actionable tips on creating the life you deserve, giving you and your teams the unfair competitive advantage in work and personal life. Hello, podcast world. Welcome to episode 11 of Balance Life Mastery. And today is a very timely topic because we are talking about the power of reframing our thoughts so that we don't get self-consumed and wallow in negativity, because at the end of the day, we are in control. Isn't that right, Jeremy? Because you are in a mood today. So this is a timely topic.
Yeah, you've had to talk me back from the brink a little bit. This topic's a long time coming as well. I swear we talked about this one in episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through, saying, "Oh, we must do a topic on this." So yes, it's very timely. But then also some of the people I've been talking to lately, it's pretty timely for them. So hopefully they'll be listening. Might have to send the link of the recording out to a few people.
Yep. Cool. I mean, in terms of the power of reframing, it is something that completely changed my mind, my mindset, my outlook on life, my general perspective on things. It is something that I practice every single day, at least maybe 10, 20 times. And I try to stay as conscious of it as possible, because at the end of the day, our thoughts and our feelings do not reflect reality most of the time. They are things that we build up and base on experiences, beliefs, past experiences, our filtering system, all of that stuff. If you are familiar, anyone out there familiar with NLP, you will understand what the filtration system is. And the way we articulate or interpret certain events in our minds, or certain circumstances, or certain words or sounds, or whatever that might be, can be digested in a very different way than intended, or that is actually helpful to us. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to mindset, we always ask ourselves one key question: is this thought, is this feeling helpful or unhelpful to us? And that is what we are in control of. You came up with a phrase, or not came up, but you mentioned a phrase the other day, control the controllables, and it stuck with me since we last spoke about it, because this is essentially controlling a controllable. We can control how a certain event, thought, or situation sits with us. So what I wanted to do today is go through 4 or 5 different scenarios where we might need to reframe, and how negativity or negative thinking might start to take over, and how we can interrupt that and kind of switch that around. So my first question to you, though, is talk to me about reframing. How do you use it in your day-to-day?
It's usually when I've either when I've triggered about something. So, actually, a friend of mine listens to this podcast, and we have a running joke about road rage. And someone cuts you up, and the world has ended. He wants to end them. He wants to get out of the car, chase after him, which is funny because he's not a big guy, and you always sort of sit there and think most of the other people are probably bigger than him. Sorry, Steve. But it's like having that ability to reframe and look at it from the other side of that person probably didn't do it on purpose. No one attempts to cause a car crash, right? So maybe their kids are screaming in the back, which I know all about, when my 2 boys batter each other in the car and you're not paying attention to the road. Or maybe you glanced and didn't see it, like bright sunlight and all these sorts of things, and just switching that just switching that focus from like what's the worst possible reason they could have done it to what's the best possible reason. I got to tell you, I used it a lot during lockdown. Like going into lockdown, I'll tell you the story in a bit, but there was a really good. I sent a really good email. Apparently, it was the best email someone had ever read, and it used reframing techniques to the IT department. So, but yeah, I continuously use it just to. There's a stoic philosophy, which I read the Daily Stoic, and another book recommendation. It's fantastic book and worth reading. It's 1 page a day. Literally, you can commit that time, I'm sure. but they often talk about your mind's the one thing you is the only thing you kind of own, right? You're sort of borrowing this body. So yeah, you can eat healthily, but you can still get ill. Yeah, you can do exercise, but you can still fall off a curb, break your leg, or whatever it is, right? And all these other situations like that, control the controllables. A lot of that comes from Stoics. Like these other things, you can live the perfect life and stuff always happens, but your mind's your own, right? No one can take your mind, right? You hear these incredible stories about the people during the Holocaust in the concentration camps, or you hear, I can't remember who it was. There was a Vietnam War veteran who spent years in a Viet Cong prison, and in their mind, they had decided that they were free, and because they were there, they were alive, they could do what they wanted at times in their head, and the guards were the ones that were trapped because the guards had to be there. And it was this amazing reframe around, like, everything is a perception. So however you see it in your head, that's how it is. So you can choose to see the good, the bad, the happy, the sad. So, and I'm a poet and I didn't know it. So
I mean, that hit me like a brick, truly, because that's some heavy stuff. And the mind, the fact that you said that our bodies are borrowed and our minds are what are in control, what I've struggled massively with is, and I know everyone is on their own journey, but how good does it feel to know that you can do something to stop feeling bad about something, or to stop feeling pain about something? How good does that make someone feel? And what baffles me is the people that, when you share some sort of a story or a reframe or something on social media, and someone throws all of this kind of negative commentary in the sense of like, oh, some people have got it easy, and it's just, well, you can choose to live in that, or you can choose to do something about it. And I, for one, always choose to try and shift things, because I've lived in pain and I know what that pain feels like, and I don't want it, because it does. I mean, I'm convinced that I'm truly convinced that when I got cancer the first time, it was because of the state of my mind and my body. It was like it built up. Any doctor or medical person will be like, what the hell are you talking about, Dina? But that is what I believe. So in that respect, yeah, I think let's get to the first kind of area, which you kind of touched on, and it's basically stewing, or I like to call it wallowing, where all the violins come out. And it's basically dwelling on a certain thought pattern, or a distorted thought pattern. And when you continuously repeat that negative thought or a bad experience over and over again in your head, you begin to lose sight of anything positive around you. It's just like you said, like driving past, seeing the bright sky, the trees, whatever that might be. So the first thing to do about this first area, stewing, is recognition, is awareness. When you master awareness of your thoughts, your mind, and your body, that is the first building block to being able to change anything. So recognize what that thought is, and recognize when it's starting to take over, and become super intentional about stopping that thought, because that is where we are in control. I like to always kind of bring this back, in that when we feel an emotion or a thought that we know might disrupt us, we have a 90-second window to stop that before it starts to snowball and avalanche. And use that 90-second window. It's a habit, okay? We talk about power of habits. So it is a habit to build to interrupt that thought, that emotion. And a lot of people, or therapists in the past, or CBT professionals, will say journaling never resonated for me. I couldn't, like, when I'm at my heightened moment, I will not sit down and write my thoughts out. Like, it just does not happen. So think about, be intentional, and just stop that thought and intentionally redirect to something that makes you happy. And that is the first thing. And the more you are aware of these situations throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, the more practice you get. Does that resonate for you?
Yeah, it does. There's one other bit that I'd probably add as well, that, and you probably don't have to do it every time, but every so often think about why is this thought coming in? Because, and this is another sort of bit of a reframe, and you'll probably touch on it in a bit, and I've killed your momentum, but a lot of our thoughts are best intentioned. So yeah, your mind will sit there and think, like, you want to jump in the swimming, you want to jump off a cliff into the ocean, right? And you want to do it because it'll be fun and exhilarating. Everyone else has done it, but you've got your little nagging thing in your head saying, "Don't be stupid, you'll kill yourself," right? Or, "Yeah, that's gonna hurt," or, "You're gonna make a fool of yourself." That's your subconscious with the best intention that it wants to keep you safe, right? So when you're applying for a job and your little voice on your shoulder sort of says you're not good enough, that's the best intention, trying to protect you from sadness, from like missing out, or or like, just, it's just those things. It's so, yeah, like, stop the thought, like, have that pattern interrupt, but every so often sort of think about, why is this happening? Like, why is this habit there? Because it is trying to serve you, just maybe not in the bigger way that you want. It's probably trying to help you on a little short term.
Exactly. And that comes down, I mean, that's NLP 101, and that comes down to our survival instinct, right? We will always want to stay safe. We will always want to feel that kind of so that the intention, the bigger intention, or the higher intention behind all of these things are usually core safety, happiness, love, all of these things. So it is 100% worthwhile exploring, for sure. Which brings us on to the second one, which is super, super common, and it is magnifying. When we start to draw conclusions that are could be unjustified, but based on limited information, we generalize and we make mountains out of, what's the saying? Mountains out of
molehills.
There you go.
Don't they have moles? Don't they have moles in Milton Keynes in London?
Exactly.
Too many roundabouts.
All the roundabouts. So that's why. So mountain out of, making mountains out of molehills, and overreacting to the tiniest thing. But that's what happens every single day. If you think about couples' relationships, road rage, all of these things, we are overreacting. So a very simple example is, I failed a lift. I failed a quiz, whatever that might be. So I will always fail. I am not good at this. I will never be good at this, right? So that is the magnifying of a tiny, tiny situation. And in order to reframe that negative thought pattern, we need to focus on the big picture, right? And how do we get to the big picture in life? It's by having goals. It's by goal setting, having that direction to what we are working towards. And once we realize that on that journey to getting to what we want, we allow ourselves to make mistakes, and we forgive ourselves, and we just realize that we have the power to improve. It is our opportunity to improve, whatever that situation may be. So that is number 2. What's your take on that?
I want to go back a sec. You missed a lift. Like,
I always miss lifts.
Yeah, I'm joking. No, I mean, that one, that one's really cool. It's similar with that, your reticular activating system, where you decide you're going to buy a brand new, I don't know, let's say Ford Ranger truck, right? And suddenly all you see is Ford Ranger trucks on the road. And it's that same thing with, like, your mind will just feed into this fire about whether it's, oh, you missed that lift last time, or, oh, you failed your maths test, or whatever it is. I mean, I see it with my son and other kids at school as well, where they have like maths tests, multiplication tests every week, and they don't actually let them progress unless they get 20 out of 20. So one of the kids, like, keeps getting 18 out of 20, and he keeps getting the same ones wrong, and they're not progressing them, which firstly is bloody ridiculous. But he's almost got it in his head now that he doesn't know that thing. It's the same thing when you say, I can't remember names. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like as soon as you say I don't remember names, well, you don't. Your mind says, "All right, I won't bother remembering it." Then what's the point? Because it's busy enough. So yeah, everything just gets like fed on the fire. And just to backtrack a little bit, yeah, I insulted Milton Keynes. I live in East Anglia. We don't have mountains. We literally just have molehills. So I'm at the other end of the spectrum.
Well, there you go. Thanks for calling that out. But I will be in London soon, so back to homeland for me. So I've lost my trail of thought, Jeremy, but I think the number 3, and I'll get back to what I was thinking a second ago. The third one is something that it rings very true to me, because this is how I very much lived my life, and I try to get out of it as much as possible. And it is the all or nothing mentality, the black or white. And this is what we call in NLP language a massive distortion. So we either generalize or distort information based on our beliefs. So this is a huge distortion, and that means that we see things in black and white with no gray areas, so nothing can be middle ground. And we believe that everything is either exactly right or dead wrong, and that leads to massive perfectionism. So when we think of things as a complete success or a total failure, it sets us up for failure, because it's impossible to achieve 100% of the time. And I do remember what I was going to say. Someone needs to talk to that school for that poor kid, because that's just broken my heart. But yeah. But yes, so the all or nothing basically is, and this is something I really, and I continuously do have to work on, is to give yourself some slack and remember that 100% success is not doable 100% of the time. And we're only human, and no one is perfect. And we have to learn with being okay to navigate the gray areas, because we need to be flexible. We need to have a little bit of elasticity, because what happens to a very rigid twig, it snaps, it breaks. But what happens, and that's why, I mean, I have zero knowledge about architecture, but what I've heard and read is that taller buildings now have some sort of sway in them, as far as so that they don't snap and break. And that's essentially the same ideology behind it. And this is part of growth mindset. When we implement growth mindset or work towards it, we're able to expand our minds and focus, as opposed to opposite ends of the spectrum. We see that little bit of gray area. And just to give an example here, which may touch on a real life situation, was when I was leaving my corporate job. For me, and I was working with a coach at the time, and all I kept saying is, I'm so burnt out, I'm going to leave tomorrow, and that's that, and I'm not going to have any income. And he just kept challenging me until I actually saw what other opportunities I had in front of me. For me, it was either I stayed in a job and I killed myself, or I left and I was penniless. Like that, I could not see anything in between. But I mean, it very, very quickly, as soon as I opened up my mind, I was able to see, and with the right questions and the right prompting, which is what a coach does, I was able to see the bits in the middle. So is that where your mood is at today, Jeremy?
Probably a little bit. Yeah, it's sort of the mine's probably more a bit of the one before, where it's sort of just piling evidence on top of evidence. So there we go. Not delving. See, I was like, oh, do we really have to do this one today? Because like I feel like I'm going to end up on a couch while Dina coaches me.
I hope I'm not cross-examining. But so number 4 of 5, and this one drives me insane. I'm very, very conscious of it, and anyone I know, I will actually poke, and I will actively tell them to stop it, but in my very direct way. But number 4 is fortune telling, and that's basically when we assume that we know the outcome before it happens, right? So when people tell a story and they make this statement of how something will turn out, or when you think you know what somebody else is thinking, and you're trying to predict the future basically and read minds. Yeah. And this blows my mind, because this is one of the biggest causes of relationship breakdowns, friendship, miscommunication, in the workplace, at home, wherever that might be. We cannot read minds. We have no idea what is going on for the person in front of us, or how they are interpreting or perceiving certain situations. And also, we have no idea of the future, right? So that is the biggest, I think it's also the easiest habit to kick, because as soon as you hear yourself fortune telling, just bloody stop, like, because it's incorrect. So I think, yeah, the key thing here is that assumptions are usually 90% of the time wrong. So in order to reframe this, it's start thinking about the positive outcomes. So start thinking about what the actual options are, as opposed to it's just going to be negative. Or if you imagine, for example, if you imagine yourself achieving whatever goal it is that you have, or you imagine that others are thinking positively about you instead of, oh, what are they going to think of me? Oh, they probably think I'm an idiot for thinking this, or for saying that, or for posting that, or whatever that might be. And you're a lot more likely to have a good outcome and feel a lot better about yourself. When you picture things negatively, it'll stop you from even trying. And that's essentially it. I mean, being positive is being brave, because that allows you to take chances. And I hate the phrase be positive, just like be kind. It's like, what does that even mean? But you get what I mean in this instance, I hope.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it sort of aligns very much with sort of visualization techniques, and how you hear top level athletes, being from rugby, you'll see the goal kicker and they'll be doing they'll look at the ball, they'll look at the post, they'll look at the ball, they'll look at the post. Same with like golf, they're basically deciding where that thing's going to go. And the likelihood of that happening increases because they've visualized it. Their mind sort of walked through what are the steps to do. So if you're visualizing failure, you're basically programming your mind for how to fail. It's like, that thing like, oh, when you jump on an assault course and try and grab a rope, if you've pictured yourself missing it loads of times, you'll probably miss it because the confidence isn't there. And also you've basically told your brain, I'm not going to get it. So it's that positive switch for like how to do it, not how to not do it.
Yeah. There's a story about and I share this in every discussion, about the whitewater rafters. Do you know that story?
No, I don't think so.
So somewhere up in cold country somewhere, and where they did whitewater rafting, and there was the captain of the boat, and all he kept saying to the team was, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree. And what did they do? They'd hit the bloody tree every single time. And they got the captain went, like, someone coached him a little bit and did all of that. And all he did was listen to me. He told the team to listen to him, and he'd direct them to avoid stuff instead of focusing on the stuff that they needed to avoid. And guess what happens? They finally won a race. So that's essentially kind of, moral of the story, basically. But yeah.
Very cool.
So the final one is personalization. And this is something, again, that it doesn't resonate for me, but I witness it. So maybe it's something that I went through in my teens, but I don't think it does so much now, unless I'm completely mistaken. But it's basically when you think that everything around you happens because it's related to you somehow, right? And that is a big thing, because that's how you know you're taking things too personally. It's the feeling that people around you are behaving in a certain way because they're reacting to something that you did, or they are trying to tell you something or send you a message, right? And it's super unhealthy, because these are the thoughts that you start to build up and blame yourself for certain things. And it may not even be anywhere near reality. So that's a huge one. And I witness it quite a lot, because I'll have a conversation. They're like, oh, but you did this. Are you sure this didn't mean, or I didn't do something to upset you? And I'm like, it has nothing, you didn't even cross my mind. So it's that sort of, I mean, yeah, no offense, but like, that's the situation. So I think with this one, and if you are aware that this is something that you do, just realize that just because something happened near you, it does not mean that it has anything to do with you. Wait for the message to be direct. This is where passive aggressiveness? Can I say passive aggression comes from, right? Because you will react to something that you think is directed to you, and then you become passive aggressive, and in comes the whole British culture of being passive aggressive, because that is essentially it. So yeah, just know that you're not the center of the universe. I'm sorry to say, and not everything is related to you. And just consider that you may have nothing to do with other people's reactions, moods, behaviors, or whatever it is. So that was number 5, and I think the most powerful one.
Yeah, I always like to compare that one to a lot of people's fear of going to the gym for the first time is that everyone's watching them, and they're not. Yeah, it's like everyone's got their own problems to deal with. Everyone's trying to do their own weights, and people will look around because they might be in between an exercise or whatever, but they're not really looking. Then, all right, probably there are a few, but the vast majority of people are in their own world with their own problems to deal with, and they don't care about you. And again, yeah, it sounds brutal, but actually it's quite liberating. It's like you don't have to be on show continuously. If you go around Tesco's, you must see like 200 people, but you won't notice anyone unless you actually know them. You just zone out. So yeah, you're very insignificant, but in a positive way.
Let's see how they digest that one.
I'll get some hate mail. I am important.
As you look through your emails. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, reframing, the way we think about what's happening around us affects the way we feel and the way we behave. So if you want to be in control of the way you feel and your reactions, reframing is a very powerful tool to have under your belt. So I highly encourage people to start thinking about this.
I've got a few quick fire additional tips if I'm allowed. And some, I mean, these are the ones that I use, and these are pretty generic, but I think that's actually the sort of that's actually the benefit to them. And quite often we sort of sit there and we'll think that I'm trying to think of the best way to word it, but if a situation's not working for you, or if you feel like you can't do something, like using comparing to someone else. So sort of saying, oh, how would this person deal with the situation? Because if you sort of say, this is completely overwhelming, I'm not good enough, or I can't do this, quite often it's that negative self-talk, and you've decided that you can't do it. So putting yourself in the third person, and this sounds really woohoo, but think of how someone else would deal with it. And this is always, this is a great way for dealing with any solution. So say I'm trying to scale a business. It's like, what would Richard Branson do? Or you're struggling with something to do with like health and fitness. It's like, okay, if I was trying to lose weight for a film, what would this person do? Because we usually know the answers, but we've got all this stuff in our head where we've negatively self-talked us and decided we couldn't do it. And actually looking at someone else's, or imagining someone else's life and the steps they would go through, sort of makes it a lot easier to digest, and starts to break down that sort of limiting belief that you've also got, and sort of starts to go, oh, hang on, because these are the 3 things that person would do, or I could do them. And suddenly you've started to do that reframe where you've sort of pulled yourself back from I can't do this to actually anyone can do this. They just need to follow the steps. And then another one, and this one's really nice just about the when it's a negative situation, it's like the what am I going to learn from this? Yeah, we always talk about, yeah, we learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. Like what am I going to learn from this situation? So yeah, let's say you tear a muscle in your leg, right? So it means you can't do running that you love to do. But okay, so let's work on maybe it's your upper body strength or something. So it's like what's the positive I can take out of this? Or COVID had huge negativity, changed it, but actually I spent far more time with my kids, and my youngest learned to ride during COVID because we were going out for daily bike rides, and he was taking his stabilizers, and we got our eldest to teach him how he learned how to cycle. So it's kind of having a look at what's going to be the advantage of this situation, because that's how we grow. And then the last one I always like is like compared to what, when you sort of say this is the worst holiday ever, you're like, compared to what? Because you're on holiday, like it rained one day on holiday. Boo hoo, right? I've been on camping holidays where our tent's been ripped in half. We went to Bulgaria, and we lost one of our suitcases. And then on the night before we came back, my son split his face open on a playground thing, and we had to go to a local hospital and stuff like this. And it's like, and so often we'll have this one thing that will derail our day, like the queue at Legoland, or the traffic jam on the way. Like you've had this amazing holiday and you get stuck on the traffic around the M25, and you go, oh, this is the worst thing ever. It's like, no, like you've done this amazing thing. I obviously talked about like the concentration camps and the Vietnam War and stuff, and it's like you compare COVID to that, or you compare like say you break your leg or something, like whatever it is, and you can't drive for 6 months. It's like compared to the person that can't afford a car and has to walk however far every day, or has damaged their back and they're in a wheelchair. There's always that compared to what, to show you that life's a lot better. I think the vast majority of people listening to this are listening on a smartphone that's worth more than £500. They might be driving in their car to work or somewhere in a nice car, or on a dog walk in the countryside. And then we think about all the people that haven't got anything. They're like living hand to mouth, or there's still like slavery in this world and bits like that. And you sit there and think, like, I can feed the family every day. And we'll do an episode on gratitude because I think that's incredibly important as well. But just like, if you're having a bad day, and it is sometimes hard to get this started, but just go, compared to what? Like how bad could this thing be? And it'll soon get you back on that path.
To give you a very like real life example, and this is something that on my trip with my son recently, I was very, very aware of. I grew up with a father who would snap at everything. Like if we were in the US and we rented a car and he took a wrong turn, like no one could breathe loudly in the car because he would go insane at everyone. Like that is in the level of intensity. And I'm not blaming my father, but I learned this behavior. So at the early stages when my son was really young and we'd travel, if I'd be driving or if my ex-husband would be driving and we take a wrong turning, it would be the end of the world for me. It's like this disastrous event and I'd lose my shit. And this time on the trip, every wrong turn we took, I was just like, oh my goodness, we can explore more. And I noticed that a couple of times, and I patted myself on the back for that. I was so proud of that switch, because guess what? Who was I impacting? Me and my son. And I had lost that panic and that anger and that whatever it was. And I didn't make my son's life a living hell because he was terrified of me losing my, So that was, I think that is the power of learning to reframe and making it part of your subconscious so that you don't have to consciously make these shifts every day, because once you do the work, it becomes your daily behavior. So yeah. Any last thoughts?
Just to emphasize that point, it shows the power of habits. It's all those little things that are going to make incredible differences. It's not the big, massive things that you have to do. It's that little 1% better each day, feeling a little bit better about yourself. That opens up an avenue to do more things. Then you get in a positive mood, and then it's easier to break down the barriers of the next thing. So, I'm always sort of slightly wary of big transformation things. Biggest Loser US and stuff, where people like do these massive traumatic weight loss things and they put it all back on. It doesn't work. So it's that little bit over time, little bit of mindset, little bit of body, little bit of performance, like all those bits soon add up.
Yeah, 100%. So guys, thank you so much for listening. If you are starting to think about, I would really like to explore any of these areas a little bit further, we are very soon opening our doors publicly for our Life by Design program, which is a high performance and balanced life program. Where high performance, why? Is because you want to live to a high standard across all areas of your life. And a lot of the times we can't do that alone, realistically. And that is why we seek out coaches and mentors. And balance, because if you don't have intentional balance, you will break at some point. So if that is something, then just get in touch with either of us on social media or find our contact information. It's everywhere online. Get in touch. We can send you some information about how to apply. Intake will be limited, but yeah. All right, guys, until next time.
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening. If you like the episode, please subscribe, share it with a friend or a colleague, and leave us a review on whichever podcast platform you're using. We read them all, and it really helps us get the insights and the guidance on where to take the program forward. And also connect with us on social media. Share your journey with us for your high performing and balanced life. And lastly, remember to take the BalanceQ scorecard. The link will be in the show notes. And BalanceQ, or BQ, is your balance quotient. It's your ability to live this high performing and balanced life, both in your personal and professional career. And when you take the scorecard, you get actionable insights, you get the steps that you can take to really take yourself on this journey. So with that, we thank you very much for listening and look forward to you listening on a future episode, and have an amazing day.